We are down to the final 4 teams in the NFL. But man, what a divisional round. We got a lot to talk about. I'm your host, Sam Gold, so welcome back to First and Gold, and let's roll the intro.
Casey Karate Kid with the arrow and chop. Nobody can touch us when it's lonely at the top.
Alright, so most of the games were good, but there was one blowout which we're just going to talk about really quickly, right off the bat. 49ers, Seahawks, and Seattle Seahawks coming out of nowhere this season at the 1 seed, beating the Niners by just an ungodly amount. I mean, 41-6 is crazy. The steam had to run out, but I didn't think it was going to be this embarrassing. Now, total props to the Seahawks. I mean, this was just the classic case of one team has all the momentum and all the health and just everything firing on all cylinders versus a team that pretty much just ran out of its luck. If you're a 49ers fan, sure, obviously it sucks to lose a playoff game against your division rival. But at the same time, to go this far, once again, just proves not only how much heart this team had this year, but the coaching in general. And it just kind of felt like, especially with how great the Seahawks defense was in this game, and have been all season, there were just no answers to be had on offense. I was a little bit harsh on Brock Purdy last week. Now, you just look at the stats, 140 yards and an interception, no touchdowns. Yes, obviously that's not a good game. But there isn't one specific part of this team you can really blame. I think just overall, they were completely outmatched in this one. And honestly, the Seahawks, I had them only winning by 4. And I think that was just me being really nice to the 49ers off of the back of a great win in Philly, which I was not expecting. So we're going to get to these next games in just a second. But the Seahawks really feel like the only fully trustworthy team in the NFL, where pretty much all facets of this team's game is nearly flawless. Like, they are just so particularly strong, especially in every defensive way. I mean, to have veteran guys like DeMarcus Lawrence, like Leonard Williams, make that much of an impact at that age, and you mix that with how fundamentally great they are at tackling and just getting to the ball quickly, this is a team that is ready to win a Super Bowl. So we'll see what happens, but great win for them. We got to move on to Bills Broncos. Where do I even begin with this game? In overtime, the Broncos win it 33-30. A monumental failure for the Buffalo Bills in all facets. I will give the Broncos props in a second, but the main story of this game, let's not lie, everybody, the Buffalo Bills finally had a clear path to get to their first Super Bowl in the Josh Allen era without Mahomes, without Lamar, without Burrow. Everybody knows that already. So the fact that they couldn't go into Denver against Bo Nix and the Broncos, who ironically might have had the best quarterback performance of all 8 of them this weekend, but we'll talk about that later. First of all, I know a lot of the discourse coming out of this is the refs. And I'm just going to say this once again. It's not just because I'm a Chiefs fan, but this is genuinely how I feel regardless of any situation. If you are straight up blaming the refs 99% of the time, you're just a loser. That is just straight up what it is. And there's no bigger loser franchise in the NFL than the Buffalo Bills. There's just not. And that goes for not only some of the fans. Now, a lot of the fans, granted, especially you guys watching, like, I'm going to be real, you guys are some of the best fans in the NFL. But there is a sector of you guys online that can just not handle the fact that there are so many other factors in why you lost this game. And this now also includes the media and the players and coaches themselves throwing temper tantrums after the game. You got Josh Allen crying in front of the media, which, you know what? I'm not going to be too harsh on the guy because he's super passionate. You could tell this one he really knew was probably, this and 13 seconds were the 2 games he's going to want back the most, probably looking back at the end of his career. But then you have Sean McDermott, who, by the way, breaking news, got fired today, which some fans are angry, of course, because they felt like he wasn't the reason why they lost this game. And honestly, I'm going to agree. I don't think Sean McDermott was the reason, but there is a constant to all these heartbreaking losses, and the fact that you couldn't get to a Super Bowl in your 8-year tenure as a head coach, or 9-year tenure, I believe. Even though it's kind of like Mike Tomlin and John Harbaugh, where you're not necessarily a bad coach or anything, it just felt like it's ran its course. So I don't necessarily disagree with that decision. We'll see what they do in the offseason, but you're going out there in the postgame and you're like, I'm going to stand up for the city of Buffalo. And what the refs did during the end of that game is just not right. And it's like, okay, buddy. Ooh, so scared. And it's like, do you not realize your star quarterback had 4 turnovers in this game? One being a absolute abomination to the sport. That play where he's running for the ball, which, by the way, he had no timeouts left. So, like, what are you doing taking off over the middle like that? And then you proceed to just chuck the ball backwards towards nobody for absolutely no reason, thus turning the ball over, then handing the Broncos good field position to then go score and ruin the momentum of this entire game. When, by the way, you were about to go up at least 10-3, maybe 14-3 at the beginning of the game. And then your guy, Brandon Cooks, who we'll talk about later, and that's their 5th turnover of the game, the only one that Josh Allen didn't have. So to be ruining the momentum of the game throughout this first half, then finally have the ball back to take the lead, and then Josh Allen pulls that, and then your defense can't even cover Lil Jordan Humphrey? I mean, there are so many other reasons other than the refs, which, by the way, we're going to get to those calls in just a minute. I agree with pretty much all of those calls, so we'll talk about it in a second. But Josh Allen has not performed the way he should against a team like this, and that's why you're going home. That's why you're going to be in Cancun in about a week. The media has spun it so many times where they're now going to claim that Josh Allen was the reason you guys were brought back into the game, and then in overtime, you guys just got unlucky by a few calls. We feel bad for Allen. Oh, another heartbreak, boo-hoo. No. You have to look at the final minute of that first half, the 5 turnovers the Bills had in this game, and then Joey Bosa, who, by the way, was non-existent pretty much all season, but especially in this game, who also threw a temper tantrum after the game, by the way, by throwing his helmet to the side of the wall. He had a roughing the passer where I could have walked to the supermarket and back by the time Bo Nix released the ball, and then Joey Bosa hit him. Like, that was the longest roughing the passer call I've ever seen. And then Bills fans have the gall to think that the refs were against them in this game. Now let's talk about it. Obviously, before we get to the next game, the main call of this game, in overtime, they had the ball to win it, which, by the way, last 3 seasons in Josh Allen's postseason career, he's had the ball to at least tie it or win the game, and they couldn't get it done all 3 times. So there's that. Brandon Cooks looked like he caught it on a long ball. Then out of nowhere, the Broncos corner just ripped it away, had the ball, and it was like, what just happened in real time? And it was one of the craziest plays I've ever seen. But then when you slow it down, this is what Bills fans are complaining about. They think that since Brandon Cooks had his knee down with the ball technically in his hands, that should have been ruled a catch. I had to go throughout the last 24 hours really trying to decipher what exactly the rules were with this one, because it was 50, it was close, but at best case scenario for the Bills, it should have been an incomplete pass, because if there was no defender there, he was going to be losing the ball regardless if he hit the ground. So the rule obviously is you have to have possession and then also survive the ground. I believe he did not survive the ground. I mean, the guy literally had, the defender had his arms wrapped around the ball already, ready to rip it out as he was tumbling over. So overall, I just think that it was the right call. That was clearly a pass interference at the end of the game by Tre'Davious White, who had a huge crash out afterwards, so I don't understand why he thought that was a BS call, because it was the correct call. And then obviously Joey Bosa had roughing the passer. So all of those things mixed with Josh Allen having 4 turnovers, I just think the Bills choked again. That's what they did. Props to the Broncos. Obviously devastating that Bo Nix now broke his ankle, and now you got to watch Jarrett Stidham in the championship game and hope for the absolute best. I will give Bo Nix his credit, even though he had one hilarious interception. That throw at the end of the game to take the lead in the 4th quarter, absolutely beautiful. I thought he did exactly what I thought he needed to do in this game, which is take off when he needed to, because the run game was really struggling for the Broncos. And I think now that Jarrett Stidham's in, they're going to really struggle running the ball against the Patriots. We'll get to that next episode, but I was rooting for the Bills, so I know I seemed harsh on them this entire episode, but I'm just speaking facts. This is what I felt. And, you know, they blew it again. All right, and then the Patriots are moving on to the championship game, beating the Texans 28-16. I'm going to be honest, even though this game was closer than the Seahawks game, this is my least favorite game of the weekend. There was nothing more frustrating than watching a defense like the Texans be utterly and completely wasted for 4 quarters. I just don't understand what is going on with CJ Stroud, because at some point, you can't just keep blaming, oh, it's the offensive line. Oh, it's Nico Collins being injured here or there. The guy had 4 interceptions, 3 of which in the second quarter, and all 4 in the first half. And honestly, the guy could have doubled that amount in this game. There were so many other times where the Patriots nearly had another turnover. He's clearly regressed the last couple of seasons since his rookie year. And it's interesting because, yes, he's won a playoff game each of his first 3 seasons. But you cannot deny only last week he also had 3 turnovers. But now this game has really shown, like, is this a guy you can really trust anymore? And I just think you got to look at yourself deeply in the mirror this offseason if you're the Texans organization and really dig deep and see what's going on. Why can't we progress? Now, it could be that the offensive coordinator has changed in the first 3 seasons. Yes, it still could partially be the offensive line. But at the same time, like, you were in this game, you were given so many chances by your defense to beat a New England team, which was favored against you, and you just threw away every opportunity. And you could just tell, like, at some point, the team just couldn't rally around the guy anymore because they were like, what are we supposed to do? We're going out there and you're throwing it directly into the defender's hands like every other play. And it just felt like an absolute disaster. One of the worst quarterback performances I think I've ever seen, at least in my lifetime. And this is coming from me, a huge CJ Stroud supporter. Loved him after his rookie year. I still believe in him. But overall, I just think that that was a ginormous disaster. And I think that the Patriots have really gotten away with it so far in the playoffs. Now, I still think they're arguably the best team in the AFC just because they are so well prepared. They don't make tons of mistakes. Now, they did have some fumbles in this game, and I think the weather also played a part in it, most likely, but they are the most ready to take on any opponent and probably go to the Super Bowl. And now they're going to play Jarrett Stidham. So I feel like they had a pretty easy path. And if they do end up making it to the Super Bowl, I feel like their only real test now is going to come against rather the Rams or the Seahawks. So it's not that I am down on the Pats or think they've gotten it super easy. I just think that it's interesting that, you know, probably no one's really going to talk about the fact that they weren't really playing super well in this game until maybe like towards the end. I mean, it was 21-13 after CJ Stroud had 4 interceptions. Like, the game was very close. And the Pats offense was struggling not only against the Chargers for a little bit there in the wildcard round, but this game. So overall, very weird watch and just a terrible game in terms of turnovers. Texans are eliminated. Patriots probably going to the Super Bowl. But let's move on to what was the most fun ending of, honestly, maybe any playoff game I've seen in the last 5 to 7 years. Not counting the Chiefs, obviously, being biased, but just objectively, which is obviously Bears-Rams. The Rams win it in overtime, 20-17. We got 2 overtime games this week. But, man, I'm going to be honest. I like the Rams, and I've been rooting for them all season, and I've picked them to go to the Super Bowl. But I can't lie. When the Bears pull off some of the plays they've been pulling off this season, and they get in the groove of things, being at home as well in that weather. The Bears have served some of the most fun football I've seen in such a long time. You know, here's the thing. I know everybody wants me to talk about the Cole Kmet play at the end. And when I was watching that play, I was just like, all right, this is where the Bears finally run out of steam. Like, they've had some fun moments this season. It's been a great year. And, oh, great. Caleb Williams is just running backwards for 20 yards. This is going to be awesome. And then when he chucks it up, I'm like, like, that's actually kind of a pretty nice throw. Like, he's got some real arm strength on his back foot in this one. Like, okay, where's this one going to go? And then Cole Kmet is just wide open in the corner of the end zone. And I just screamed. I didn't know what other noise to let out other than just like, ah! Like, that was honestly, and this is a guy who is rooted for and has been gifted by and has watched with his own eyes Patrick Mahomes for 7 amazing years. That was one of the best throws I've ever seen in my entire life. With Caleb Williams, you are getting so many different things. And I don't think Bears fans care about the negatives because obviously we got to talk about the interception in overtime. And yes, obviously Caleb Williams was feeling himself towards that point in the game and was expecting DJ Moore to cut in a little bit more on the deep crosser and not just stop running at full speed. But at the same time, I do feel like there were better options on that play. So I think they got to share the blame on that one. Yes, you can blame Caleb for having 3 interceptions, 2 of which were pretty bad. But at the same time, like, you are not in these games without Caleb Williams. You are not witnessing some of the greatest offensive plays you have seen from this franchise in decades without Caleb Williams. You are not feeling like you're never dead without Caleb Williams. I think these are things that he has to clean up in the coming offseason, because even though the Bears have had such a great year, there are still a lot of red flags that they need to clean up. And I just believe that I'm hoping, and I do have faith in the organization to do this, but I'm really hoping they don't just look at the season. They're like, we got it. We got the magic. We don't need any major changes, because I do think there are some changes, especially to the secondary, a little bit more to Caleb's accuracy, taking the easy stuff, a little, some coaching things here and there. But overall, like, he's the guy. He is an unbelievable talent when it matters most. And that's what's more important. Like, here's the difference between Caleb Williams and, let's say, Kirk Cousins. Yes, Kirk Cousins can go out and have 4,100 yards, 30 touchdowns, and a 70% completion pass, but he's not going out and doing what Caleb did on a 4th down in the playoffs. You know what Kirk Cousins does on a 4th down, specifically 4th and 7 in 2022 in the wildcard round against the Giants? He's throwing a 3-yard crosser to his tight end, and just like, oh, a season that was so awesome, full of 13 wins, just down in the garbage because I wanted to dump it off when it mattered most. That's the difference between these two guys. That's why Caleb Williams can be a Hall of Famer. That's why he can finally get the Bears over the hump. Not like someone else like Kirk Cousins. So, yes, you had the best of both worlds with him in this game. But at the same time, like, that has to be such an exhilarating feeling for Bears fans to know you have this guy in the future. Now, there are some other reasons why the Bears certainly lost this game. I think that Ben Johnson had certain coaching decisions where on these 4th downs, once again, it's like not necessarily the worst thing in the world to go for on 4th down, especially with a coach that has had more success than not this season in Ben Johnson. But if you're just going to run it straight up the middle, which is a play that you did, I think it was like 3 4th downs in a row before you finally did what you really were supposed to do, which was sneak it with Caleb Williams kind of on the outside of the tackle, which is what you did in overtime, which I thought was the great play. Like, you're running a pitch out and then a run up the middle, and it's like, dude, at some point, maybe just take the field goal if this is what you're going to be calling. And then I did not like the sequence late in the 4th quarter, the drive prior to Caleb's great touchdown pass, which you went run, 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 and then he did a quick pass over the middle that almost got intercepted. I just thought the play calling was a little bit off for both coaches. I haven't even mentioned the Rams yet. They kind of got away with one just like they did against the Panthers. The Rams have really been playing with fire this season. And the reason why I might be hesitant to pick them to go to the Super Bowl is because they haven't quite all put it together ever since they lost to the Seahawks in Week 16. So I really do think that was Sean McVay's possibly his worst coach game in a long time. Definitely this season. Props to the Rams. Cam Curl made an awesome play on the Caleb Williams interception. And then kind of like the final drive against the Panthers, they just locked in and played as efficiently as possible on offense, picking only the plays they knew were going to work the most. And then obviously Matt Stafford had a phenomenal throw to the outside to Devontae Adams, really putting it where no one else could catch it. Adams obviously made a great catch as well. That section of the field to throw it as a quarterback and put that much zip on it, that is way more impressive than a lot of people think. So overall, that was another MVP-like throw for Stafford, even though he did not have an MVP performance in this game at all. The Rams came out. They were the slightly better team. There were so many exciting moments of this game. And overall, I just think that, the Bears hopefully can just learn from some of the red flags they had this season, build on it, and be even better next year. So they don't have to pull out so many miracle wins, and they can actually just be a better team in general. So overall, what a great game. What a great weekend, guys. I mean, listen, we got Pats, Broncos, and Seahawks, Rams. What is this, like 2014? I don't know. If you guys are enjoying this content and this season, don't forget to drop a like and comment down below your favorite moment from the divisional round. If you guys want to see all our awesome clips that we post to social media, go follow us at First and Gold on Instagram and TikTok. And we will see you guys for the next episode for the championship predictions. I've been your host, Sam Gold. Goodbye.